Hello and welcome to this week's MoneyFit Live webinar. My name is Todd Christensen. I am the Education Manager at MoneyFit by DRS. Glad to have you with me. Today, this week's topic is do-it-yourself debt relief. We are going to be talking about the big four debt relief options if you're going to try and get out of debt on your own. We're talking about, most of you have heard of the Snowball. Many have heard of the Avalanche. We're also going to be talking about the Landslide and the Cascade, each of them having their own advantages and drawbacks, and very particularly beneficial in certain situations. So that's what we are talking about today. Hope you'll stick with me. At the end of this presentation, if you would like, there will be an opportunity to get a certificate of completion. I will give you that passcode and the link on the last final screen. So let's go ahead and get moving on this presentation. We are talking about do-it-yourself. Why would you want do-it-yourself? There are lots of organizations out there offering to help, from credit counseling, debt management, that offers a debt management program, to debt settlement, through debt negotiators, to bankruptcy, and then some even more some sketchy organizations out there as well. These three, we'll talk about those three options at the end, by the way, which are quite appropriate in some circumstances. But why would you want to do this on your own? I think most of us would understand if you're doing it on your own, you're going to save fees, that you're not going to be charged a fee by any organization. Anytime you are having somebody do something for you, what you can do on your own, you should expect to pay more. That's everything from making your own hamburger versus going out to eat to fixing your car. Now, sometimes we are just not in a position or have the time or other resources to be able to do this on our own. But we're going to talk about how these three actually, these four options are actually something that you can do and choose from. Greater control, offering us the control to do, make progress when and how we choose. There's an independence that goes with that is quite powerful for most of us. Privacy can be an issue. Some people are uncomfortable giving information to others to help them out, or uncertain about, can you trust this organization or that organization? We'll talk about how you know you're working with a trustworthy credit counseling organization, for example. Generally, if you're working with an attorney, they're somebody that you should be able to trust. If you can't trust them with your legal information, who can you, right? But still, a lot of people would rather just keep their personal information personal, whether it's for privacy concerns of information getting out, or just not sharing where they're at financially with just anybody. The idea, though, is you're going to be doing the heavy lifting and do it yourself. I would always recommend, being, of course, a credit counselor myself, have a credit counselor there to spot you when you're doing your heavy lifting, just to check to make sure you're doing it in the right way, and get some input or some coaching on that. Okay, so setting your priorities is really the first way to decide when you're going to decide, how do I want to get out of debt? And there's four reasons you might want to get out of debt, or four ways that these methods will match your priorities. Do you want to save the most money over time? One of these options will save you more money than all of the others will. Do you want to build your credit? There is a method that will help you build your credit faster than the others. There is a method that will ensure that you stay motivated, or that might provide you more motivation than the other three. And that's really key when you're talking about getting out of debt, is staying motivated, seeing progress and getting out of debt. Sometimes if you don't see the quick progress, it's hard to stay motivated and finish the job. And there's a method for that too. Are you in kind of survival mode where you're thinking, I am just trying to make my monthly minimum payments. I'm just barely doing that. I don't even know how I can think about accelerating my monthly payment. Because in reality, if you only make minimum payments on your debts, particularly credit card debts, store cards, it can take you that 15 to 25 years to pay off. You're going to end up spending quite often 50% more, or up to 300% more, or even more than that, depending on your interest rate, to finally get out of debt. That status quo is unacceptable. Even if you're in survival mode, one of these methods will help you accelerate your repayment plan so that you'll be out of debt in 4 years or less in most cases. These other three can get you out of debt in 3 years or so. It just depends on you, depends on your motivation, depends on what you're willing to do to get out of debt. Most people are not in the position to feel they have extra money to service the debt and pay extra interest. Big key here, especially for the first three we're going to talk about, is the power cash. This power, and even for those who feel that I'm already just in survival mode, I can't come up with any extra money to pay down your debts, because most people understand if you can send extra money to the creditor, to your lender, your debt is going to get repaid faster. But most people will say, I don't have any extra money. I'm already just barely making payments on my bills as it is. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That does not mean that 60% of Americans can't pay off their debts faster, can't come up with some money here, or move money from this expense over here to a priority over here. We are just really not so great as a society in prioritizing our finances. 60% have virtually nothing into savings every month. So this principle of finding power cash can really be powerful in accelerating your debt repayment, getting it from that 15 years, 25 years down the road till you're debt-free to experiencing debt freedom in just 3 years or less, really with very minimal pain. You're finding extra payments, extra cash in your budget that you can free up and send to your creditors. First of all, figure out what your expenses of choice are. Identify them. Here you're going to be identifying things like groceries and dining out. Do you have a choice to buy groceries or not? Not really. But do you have a choice to shop at this store versus that store? Do you have a choice of spending money on this meal with a lot of meat or a lot of expensive ingredients, or this meal over here, top ramen on the other end? Yeah, you have the choice. That doesn't mean I'm going to say you have to go with the lowest and cheapest ever, but there's a choice. There's always options when it comes to what we're going to spend our money on with regards to groceries. So groceries, dining out, gasoline. Do you have a choice on whether you're going to spend money to get to work? No, but are there options? Everything from carpooling to just taking an extra or making one fewer trip, one less trip into town every day. When you get home and then turn around and you go on an errand, maybe you can figure out, be a little more organized and combine that with your commute so that we're spending less on gasoline over time. So gift giving is another one. A lot of people love giving gifts to family or close friends, whether it's for birthdays or Christmas and holidays or other times. That is something that you can look at freeing up some money from, how much you're spending, figure out how much you're spending there every month on average. And then things like or entertainment, movies, videos, gaming, and downloads, so forth. How much are you spending? Figure out how much you're spending every month on each of those items, each of those discretionary expenses. Once you figure that out, then you simply take that total amount and you multiply it by 10%, 0.1, and this becomes your power cash. That amount, let's say you're spending $500 a month in groceries right now. Your power cash then would be $50. Are you able to go from spending $500 a month on your groceries down to $450 a month on your groceries without significant pain? Yes. It may or may not, depends on your situation, but it may require very small adjustments or some refiguring of your plans on what you're eating every month. But you can come up with $50 from groceries. You can come up with $10 from gasoline. You can come up with $10 or $20 from entertainment. And then from dining out, the typical household is dining out for spending $200, $300 a month on dining out. There's another $20 or $30 a month. Can you live on $270 of dining out versus $300? Of course, you can live on zero dining out and eat at home and save more money. But we're talking about trying to do it with as little change as possible and still make a significant impact on your debt. This Power Cash, that is what you use to send with your other payments, with your current payment, to whichever debt is your priority. We'll get to that in a moment. That Power Cash is the key to accelerating your debt repayment, getting you out of debt in 3 years or so, rather than the 15 or 25 even. The other key skill, the other key behavior that you need to take advantage of when it comes to getting out of debt faster, I call it payment stacking. Some might call it rolling over your payment, but payment stacking is just this. Every time you pay off a debt, because they will not all be paid off at the same time, but every time you pay off a debt, you take the payment you were sending over there and you then move it to the next debt on your payoff priority list. In the meantime, when you first start off, you're focusing on one debt specifically. Everything else you're making minimum payments on. You're still making your monthly payments, but those are all minimum payments. One debt, whichever is the most important to you to pay off based on your plan, you're sending your Power Cash to that, and as soon as that gets paid off, you take the Power Cash and the minimum payment that you were sending there, and you move it over to the next one on your priority list. And now you had the minimum payment on that second debt, plus the minimum payment that you were making over here to the first debt that's now paid off, plus your Power Cash, and you're paying that debt off even faster. Get that paid off, and now you have the two first minimum payments and the Power Cash. You move that to the third one on your list, and you can see how this will just accelerate your debt freedom day that you can really celebrate. Accelerate to celebrate. Okay, so let's talk about the four big choices here. We've got the avalanche, debt avalanche, going to be most financial experts would say this is the option you should choose. Whereas you will, if you hear one of the most popular ones, popularized by some radio personalities, would say, no, do the debt snowball. That's how you get out of debt fastest. It is not how you get out of debt fastest. No, there's no way you can prove that you'll get out of debt faster. Some people will believe that's the best way to stay motivated. We'll get there in a minute. Debt landslide and the debt cascade, two options that we've come up with, or that we've named at least in the last little bit, how they might help you build your credit or just go from survival mode to actually debt acceleration. So let's start with how you save the most money when you want to get out of debt. You ask somebody, you want to get out of debt, what's your reasoning? Do you want to get out of debt and save the most money, get out of debt faster? Do you want to stay motivated? Do you want to build your credit? Do you want to, what's your motivation? What is your purpose? Everybody will say, unless they really don't care about their money, everybody's going to say, I want to get out of debt and save the most money and get out of debt fastest. If I can do the two of those at the same time, even better. Well, guess what? Your option for this is the debt avalanche. The debt avalanche is absolutely the only way to go if your goal is to get out of debt faster and pay less in interest. Here's what the debt avalanche is. You have all these debts that you're paying off, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 25, whatever. You organize them and prioritize them by the highest interest rate first. Whether that highest interest rate is on a credit card or a store card or a gas card or a tire store shop line of credit or a car loan or home, whatever it is, You focus your power cash right off the bat. You focus it on the highest interest rate account first. All the others are making minimum payments on. But by focusing on that highest interest rate first, you're going to pay down your debts faster than any other method out there, including the snowball method we'll get to in a moment. It may only take 2 or 3 months. It may only save you 2 or 3 months in time, which doesn't sound like a whole lot. But when you're thinking about, and in a lot of households, they're paying a total of $2,000 or $3,000 of every month toward their debts, or even if it's just $500 or $200 a month that you're paying toward a debt, that extra 3 months or 4 months that you're saving, you're paying off earlier with the Avalanche, that could be anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. That's money you get to spend rather than sending it off to your creditors. So this is the debt. That's the debt avalanche. You pay you send your power cash. You organize your debts by highest interest rate all the way down to the lowest interest rate, and you send your power cash to the highest interest rate first. Once that's paid off, you can go to the second highest interest rate, and so forth. Debt avalanche. I agree with most financial experts that say this is the way to go if you want to save the most in interest and time. Second option is your. Let's talk about this one. How about if you want to rebuild your credit fastest? What if you are thinking about wanting to buy a home in a year or two, and you have a lot of debt you're trying to get rid of, but you're also wanting to build your debt faster? Yes, paying down your debts. Anytime you pay down your debt, it can help you build your credit, because besides the on-time monthly payment, which is the number one thing you can do to build your credit, paying down your debt balances is the next thing. But not all debts are created equal in the eyes of the credit scoring models. Newer accounts actually have a greater impact on your credit rating than older accounts. So we're going to be talking about this landslide. This is one of those that we've named in the last little bit that is all about building your credit as fast as you can, or rebuilding your credit in some cases. What you do is you take all those debts, and instead of ordering them putting them in order as highest interest rate first down to lowest interest rate, you do it in order of the newest account to the oldest account. Which was the account that you opened up most recently? That is the one that you're going to send the power cash to first. By sending it to the newest first, you're going to have the greatest impact on your credit rating. That's the debt landslide. It's appropriate for people who are getting ready to make a major purchase on credit. Ideally, that would just be a home loan. For some people, it might be a car loan or a private student loan, neither of which I'm really a fan of, especially private student loans, not a big fan. But stay focused on the newest balance, the newest account first. Get that paid down, and you'll see things generally look up as far as your credit rating goes. Next, what about this one? This is the one that is we hear about most. The debt snowball. It's been popularized by a well-known radio talk show host, and people who only see his information as the only information out there that is trustworthy miss a lot of good opportunities to save themselves some money. The snowball method can be appropriate. The snowball method says, okay, don't order it by the highest interest rate first or by the any other method, but go with the lowest balance first, because, and this works for some people, it does. By going with the lowest balance first, let's say you have a clothing store card that just has $60 on it, but you're making minimum payments, and it just seems like you are not making any headway. If you come up with $60 of power cash, you can pay that one off immediately. Boom. And now you have one less monkey on your back. You can turn and say, okay, which one next? Where's my next lowest balance? And you can start to see within a month, in many cases, you start to see progress, that you have fewer and fewer creditors that you're having to write a check for or to send a payment to online. And that can be motivational for a lot of people. If you feel that that's you, that you need that motivation, then here's what I recommend. Start with the snowball. That's great. Start with the snowball until you pay off your first debt. And then consider moving to the Avalanche or moving to the Landslide. Again, here's the problem with the snowball. It will take you 3 to 4 months or more longer than if you used the Avalanche method. And it's going to cost you more money in interest. Admittedly, not everybody gets into debt because they're disciplined and organized like a CPA, because the Avalanche really is a CPA method. That's where, be very disciplined, organize it this way, do that, do this. But really, if you think about it, they're both the same. You have to be organized to do either method, any of these methods. So I'm okay. I'm good with the snowball for people to start off with if they need it, and then move to the Avalanche or to the Landslide if they're at that point. Here's the thing, though. There are studies there that you can study. You can cite studies either way saying the snowball method is the most effective way of staying motivated, because you need the motivation to get through the debt elimination process. But there are also studies that show that it is not the method, it's the belief in the method. And so when you see a group of people who are so dedicated to one person that's saying you've got to use the snowball method, that's the only method to do it, to go by, they believe that, then that's where they're going to stay most motivated. If you can believe that saving the most money over time back in your pocket and getting at it faster is the Avalanche method, you're going to stay more motivated with the Avalanche method than with any other method. You're going to look at these other methods and say, why would I do that when I'm saving more money this way? Or why would I do this method or that method when the Landslide is the one that's going to be building my credit faster? Your motivation comes from your belief in the method, not from the method itself. So the snowball can be appropriate for a lot of people. Try and move off the snowball. It is kind of like a baby step, where if you can't, once you kind of you're done with the whole teething method, the whole teething stage of getting out of debt, time to step up and be an adult about paying off your debts. Let's get you into the debt repayment method that really is the best one for you. Okay, now here's one that's a lot of people think, I don't have any extra money at all. I can't come up with even an extra $50 or $20 or even $15 of power cash. Right now, all I can do is work on the monthly minimum payments. That's all I can send is the minimum payment. Okay, if that's you, fine. Understand this. You can do that. Start there. When it comes to making a minimum payment on a credit card or on your store cards, every time you make a payment, even if it's just a minimum payment, the next month you get a statement in the mail or in your email, they're going to ask for a little less because you made a payment. You're not using the cards. That's kind of key to all of this. That should be a given. You're not using any more debt. But the next time you get that statement, they're going to ask for a little less. It might be $1 less, or it might be $5 less. Instead of accepting that next monthly minimum payment and giving them that a little less payment next month, no, you're going to stick with the original minimum payment. And you're going to take that and you're going to keep whatever your minimum payments are this month. Your minimum payments this month will never change. You're going to stick with this month's minimum payments until every single debt is paid off. This is the Cascade method because you're paying it, and every month, even though the monthly minimum payment is going down and down, you're up here and it's going down and down, step by step, month by month. until in just 4 years or so, for most situations, household situations, you are out of debt and you didn't have to come up with any extra money right up front to send off to your debts. So that is the debt cascade. That's something that you just, you can call it, if you don't like the cascade idea, call it the level pay. Today's minimum payment is your new payment. Boom. Set in stone, no changing, no more using that card, no more going into that store to use that store credit. I am making the payment on whatever it was on the day, whatever today is, set that your payment today, that is it. No more changing. Now, over time, here's the thing, with the debt cascade, after a couple of months, you also have $10 or $15 difference between your original cascade payment and the new payment that they're asking for. At this point, again, you can then look at, okay, which method, do I stick with the cascade, or am I ready to go with the Avalanche? Or am I trying to build my credit, am I ready to go with the Landslide? So both the Snowball and the Cascade can be just temporary options for starting off and getting you going until you're ready to move on to what's really important to you, either building credit in advance of a home loan or just paying off debt as fast as you can, which the Avalanche is really is unrivaled for that. Okay, very briefly, let's talk about your third-party options. What happens if you've tried these options and they just are not going to work for you, or you're in a situation where the interest rates you've tried to negotiate with your creditor directly and lower the interest rate. Quite often you can do that, especially if you've had a history of on-time payments. But if you've missed a payment here and there, or if they know that you have 5 or 6, 3 or 4, or even one other account, another credit card company that you have an account with, they don't want to be the only ones lowering your interest rate because that gives a competitive edge to your other card companies. That's why sometimes they will say, oh, look, we can do this for you, this for you, and that for you. But if you really want to look at an overall strategy getting out of debt with a third party, start with a nonprofit credit counseling agency. Of course, I'm going to say that, yes, I work for one. But there's a reason why you look on your credit card statement, and right up there by the statement balance, it will say, if you have trouble making a payment, contact look at it, it says it, credit counseling agency. Call this phone number. Call a nonprofit credit counseling agency. They're the first step when you can't make the payment on your own. Okay, what we do is we work with the creditors to get your interest rates lowered. Lower interest rate usually means lower payment, but also, more importantly, it means more of your monthly payment is going towards your debt, and you're paid off in 5 years or less. Nonprofit credit counseling agencies cannot put you on a program that is going to take you longer than 5 years to pay off. It's 5 years or less, no prepayment penalty. All right. Next option, debt settlement. Before I go on debt settlement, if you want to find a trustworthy, I said I was going to tell you how to do this, find a trustworthy nonprofit credit counseling agency. You go to one of two places. Go to FCAA, Financial Counseling Association of America, fcaa.org, or nfcc.org. Those are the two places, the two industry trade groups whose members are working on best practices. Okay, debt settlement. Debt settlement is where you contract with an organization, you pay them, they tell you not to contact your creditors anymore. In fact, quite often they'll say, send a letter telling them not to contact you either. And then they hope that in the next year or two, as you're building money with them, and they're taking out their own fees, that you won't be sued and have your wages garnished before they can then take money and offer 50% of what you owe to that creditor. Be very, very wary of this option. This is one you can do on your own if you had to, but of course it's going to damage your credit long term, 5 years. Credit counseling, no direct impact on your credit. Closing accounts on a credit counseling agency will have an indirect, but it may be minimal. It just depends on your situation. Debt settlement, no doubt about it, damages your credit long term. And if you go with a third-party company, their fees added on to what they actually achieve for you still end up having you pay 75 to 85% of what you originally owed. So it's really not that much of a savings for the trade-off in the damage to your credit. And the last one, bankruptcy. It is a legal option for you. It's a last-ditch option if you cannot do anything else and you are drowning in debt and it's getting worse and worse and you've already tried every other option. Don't go directly to bankruptcy unless you've tried the other options. That's too often the case. People will put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off, say, well, eventually if I have to, I'll file for bankruptcy, and they put it off. And then by the time they've sought third-party help, there really isn't much option but bankruptcy. Go see a nonprofit credit counseling agency. Again, if you have to file for bankruptcy, you have to see a third-party nonprofit credit counseling agency anyway. That's part of the bankruptcy law since 2005 because of the possibility of minimizing bankruptcy, the potential for bankruptcy, if you can get there soon enough. So that is, those are your three options. Really, anything after that, they're promising you the sky, pie in the sky. Be wary. Be wary. Okay. Picture your future. If you want to change, if you're in a situation where you're like, yes, I want to get out of debt, here's what you do. Picture what it looks like in your future to be debt-free. What are you doing? What is it that you want to do if you had a debt-free life? Consider where you are now. What does it look like? Are you there? Obviously not. You're taking this class. So then that difference between where you want to be and where you are, that difference should create a feeling of discontent. It should make you uncomfortable because you are not where you want to be. So instead of just accepting, well, this is where I am, I'm always going to be, focus on where you want to be, where you are now, and what are you doing? Are you doing anything to change that? If you're not doing anything to change that, you're going to continue to feel bad about and feel uncomfortable about your situation. Instead, if you can just come up with one thing, tell yourself you're going to change, and then come up with one thing you're going to do to make a difference, to close that gap. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but one thing within the next 24 hours, ideally now. As soon as you're done with this webinar, you're calling a bank, you're calling a creditor, you're calling a nonprofit credit counseling agency, you're calling a bankruptcy attorney, whatever it is, doing one thing now. You're changing. You're gonna be much more likely to actually change. So there's your theory of change in one screen. If you want any more information on this topic, please feel free to reach out to us. There's our phone number down there at the bottom of the page, 800-432-0310. Moneyfit.org is our website. If you'd like a certificate of completion for today's webinar, it is found at that link, bit.ly/MFL. That stands for MoneyFit Live. MFL dash, can't forget the dash, DIY, do it yourself, and the passcode is going to be Nature719, no capital letters, all lowercase, Nature719, and you'll get an email with the certificate in PDF format. Thank you for joining me today. Please join me again next Thursday at 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Pacific, and we'll have another very relevant and helpful topic for you, very practical ideas. Again, Todd Christensen, MoneyFit Education Manager. Look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.